I beat Path of Radiance about a week ago, and I thought it would be fun to make a video just kind of talking about my thoughts on it. This isn't really like a review. I'm not going to go through like each point of the game and like talk about if it objectively succeeds or fails or whatever. I'm just kind of jotting my general opinions and thoughts on the game. So I've been a Fire Emblem fan for about 3 years now. I got into the series, I think in sophomore year of high school. I got Awakening for Christmas. That was 3 years ago. I believe I'm a freshman now. So yeah, so I think one thing I noticed after I kind of entered the fan base and like seeing all the discourse is that Tellius games are very highly regarded. I had like a MacBook or like an old 2010 MacBook that could barely run like GPA emulation, so I never really attempted to like emulate anything above that until fairly recently. And I think so since I have like a fairly solid like Windows PC, I figured, hey, why not give the Tellius games a shot? And I did, and overall, they're at least Path Raids is still playing through Radiant Dawn right now, but overall, pretty great. So I think my favorite Fire Emblem game is probably Fire Emblem 6. But I would say this one's maybe second or third, at least right now, because I think it's just for like things in general tend to like alternate very frequently. So, but overall, like really solid game. I think the gameplay was like the hard mode was Japanese easy mode, Japanese normal mode, and it really shows. It didn't. The hard mode didn't really feel like hard mode, which is what I played on. Didn't feel. It felt like normal mode, like any other Fire Emblem game, well, except for maybe Awakening. But it felt like the standard difficulty rather than the hard difficulty. But overall, but yeah. So the gameplay, while even though it wasn't the easy side, it was fun. It was a Fire Emblem gameplay. Fire Emblem gameplay is, in my opinion, tends to be pretty solid overall. I feel like that does hold true here. I did think it was kind of silly how you get like Lagos effective weapons, even though there weren't that many Lagos enemies in the game to begin with. But from what I've played, this Radiant Dawn does fix this quite a bit because you do fight against quite a. I'm like part 2 of Radiant Dawn right now, so you do fight quite a bit more Lagos enemies, at least from what I've seen. So I think they had definitely fixed that quite a bit. Also, for the most part, you can kind of just ignore fire effective damage because, like, the flyers I used, Jill and Tanith, had pretty respectable defense, so you can just kind of plow through enemy archers without worrying about damage. And notice, like, for most like archers I fought against, they did a total of 0 damage. So, yeah. But overall, it was like solid and stuff. But you know, I think this one thing I noticed about the story is that it wasn't very much a standard Fire Emblem story with like about one country being another country, and that country has like just a franchise royal that you have to help out, and it was very much a beat by beat Fire Emblem story, and the like parent dies and all stuff like that. I thought it was pretty well. It's pretty well executed overall. I think that they did a good job making Tellius feel like a believable setting. And even though it was like, again, a standard story, it was a good story. Well, my story I'm here is purely talking about the plot. I think that the parts of the game are actually like very well done. But yeah, I think one thing like is that how a lot of parts of the game were kind of filler in a way, but they helped you like understand the world better. Like for example, it's a whole like arc where you're fighting against Lagos slavery. Begnion arc where you're like going through like Lagos slavery and how it's still extra legally practiced even after it's been abolished. It was just like, yeah, again, it doesn't contribute to the overall story of like fighting Day in any way, but it does a lot to help like the world feel believable and lived in. That's one thing that this game does very well is that you get to see all the different like factions and how all these different parts of the world live and what they're like. And I think that this probably does it as the best in the series, maybe except for maybe Epic 6, but that's more like they tell you how the world works, rather than you actually get to see it. I think that may just be more to like system limitations than anything else. But yeah, overall, world building was solid. So I think most Fire Emblem fans will agree with me on this, but like in terms of writing, the main appeal for the series has never been like the actual plots, rather than the actual characters. And I think that this game overall definitely delivered in that regard. Uh, I thought that like a lot of the characters did kind of feel like they fit into like sort of standard Fire Emblem archetypes. It still felt like effective and like well written characters. Like let's say for example felt very much like the Nina like archetype, like what like Guinevere, Nina, and those characters. But she felt very compelling in her own regard, and like Soren for example felt like kind of the advisor of the game, and also Titania as well. But again, they didn't feel like just that archetype. They felt like well realized characters in their own regard, and that stems to characters like Boyce, your early game fighter, uh, Marcia, your early game flyer, but they each felt unique and well rounded as characters. Uh, I think it's one of the only Fire Emblem games where I can say that none of the characters feel bad or unlikable in any way. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I wasn't really a big fan of how sports are only limited to 5 like per person because Isoike has around like I think 7 or 8 supports, but you can only see 5 of those 24 conversations, or 20, 21 or 24 rather. I don't remember how many he has exactly. It's 20. I don't know, but you only see 5, like a slim portion of those overall supports, and it just feels really needless. I understand why they have it there because the game balancing supports give really good bonuses, but there are better ways of balancing it than that, in my opinion. Because, for example, you got enough to an A support with Soren, and while so you can find out some pretty important information about his character. Won't spoil it in case anyone hasn't played it, but it just felt like you don't see that information about. Oh, shit. So yeah, where was I with that? So sorry about that. I kind of spilled some like water on the floor, but yeah. So I think it's through his like Soren's A support, you find out some pretty important information about his character that does recontextualize a lot of his actions. I don't want to say his actions, but like a lot of his character in a way. And I think that it doesn't. It feels like strange that they would like add the 5 support limit there, while at the same time hiding that really important information about his character in his A support. Unless it's brought up in like Radiant Dawn, because again, I'm still like relatively early on in the game, so it'll probably come up from there, honestly. Yeah, but yeah, overall characterization was pretty solid in this game. I did definitely like Ike quite a bit. I wouldn't say he's like my favorite lord, but I thought he had a very compelling like character arc where he had to like take out his father's like position in the real mercenaries, and he's also just like a really enjoyable character that has some nice interactions with others, with like his bluntness and all that. Yeah, but yeah, characterization wise, solid. One thing I kind of noticed about the stories though, sorry, I can't talk today, is that it felt pretty incomplete in a way. Is that they definitely made clear that something else was going on outside of this conflict with Ashnard and all that. Speaking of Ashnard, we were happy they included his. I know a lot of people joke about this, but they included his like motivations behind his battle conversation with Rayson. They do like allude to that a bit. I talked about like, Rayson says, I want to find out the truth about the Streams massacre, and you do find out through him, in a way. So I guess they do like allude to that beforehand, but it's so bizarre that they would have like your dancer, your one most fragile unit that you have in your party, except for like your healers. Like even then, like Raison's still the most fragile, and have him only have like the most motivations behind the conversation with him. Yeah. So yeah, but the story felt kind of incomplete in a way, where you can tell that they had another game plan after this. It does like the last scene in the game with Sephiroth is like him talking about, yes, this is kind of weird how we didn't find out what the truth behind the medallion was and all that. So yeah, I definitely can. And I'm still early on reading Dawn, but I can definitely tell they're like definitely like following up on some plot threads in that game, especially things with like how Damon's Emion or Bagdion control all that. They did allude to how like Diane's kind of fucked after everything that happened. I think they talked about that when you're in the Dane Palace, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. So I think overall, really solid game. If you have not played it, which I don't think you have, considering you're watching this video, but if you haven't played it, I do recommend playing it. Yeah, it's a pretty great game.